Thank you. That's a big challenge to summarize today when there's been so many smart people up here voicing their opinions. But I'll try my best and at least provide some perspective from a youth organization, AUF. The Chinese Communist Party has for several decades oppressed both its own population and neighboring countries, of course, as today's conference has illuminated. And this is a very important issue for us in AUF. And I would first like to thank the organizer of this event and also everyone here who worked tirelessly to create awareness and spread information about some of the issues that we are facing, because without awareness, change is probably impossible. And China's effort to establish itself as a global superpower has been discussed throughout the day, and I think this is a very important issue to talk about, because for a country like this to gain the sort of political and economic influence that we are seeing right now is of course something that should be quite frightening, but it should also motivate us to actually take effort and voice our opinions about what's happening in the country when it comes to human rights abuses and also in neighboring countries. For AUF, our job will always be to push the Norwegian Labour Party to be more brave in policy making and making sure that they are held accountable and take the appropriate actions when that is necessary. And Norway's foreign policies are of course no exception to this. So we take our job in this very seriously. And for us, the answer when it comes to China is sort of clear, that if a country like Norway, one of the world's richest countries, does not dare to speak up and use our voice to criticize and condemn some of the actions that are taking place, then what countries will be able to do that? Who will fill that role if we don't do it? So I think we should look at a country like Norway as someone that has a sort of responsibility to actually take action and voice our opinions. And like in all other authoritarian regimes, already marginalized and oppressed groups are of course often paying the highest price. And in AUF we have a big focus on, for example, how the situation for LGBT people in China is right now. Also the political opposition, journalists, and of course also the Uyghur population, which is suffering greatly. And to speak up about these issues is very important. And another topic that has been brought up several times today is about how dialogue and cooperation with China is of course important. And we firmly believe that the only way to actually achieve some change is if we manage to create some sort of common ground and understanding about what sort of human rights issues we have going on with China today. So of course that will be important for Norway to take that role, but our role as someone who can provide the dialogue cannot take place without demands and without some core values that we need to stick to. And therefore AUF really hopes that Norway can be a lot braver than we are today. And this is why we expect our current government to be firmly opposed to a lot of the action that China is currently carrying out, and condemning a lot of the things that are taking place, especially when it comes to human rights issues. Ola Elvestuen mentioned a very interesting point earlier today about Norway as a small country and how we always talk about Norway as such a small country that almost our effort doesn't matter. And I think that was said in a bit of a different context, but I think it was a very important point made around that, how we can never use Norway as a small country as an excuse not to take action and as an excuse not to make our voices heard. We should do the exact opposite. We should use it as an opportunity for us to actually push for more brave legislation and more brave policy making. Because if a small country like Norway doesn't dare to actually speak up, then we can't expect the more influential countries, the EU and other organizations to do the same. We have the opportunity to actually make a change by inspiring others and also creating awareness a lot of the time. So that was a brief comment about that. And another topic that has been discussed a lot today is how our dependency on China and on the Chinese economy is sort of a big issue, because it means that we sort of need to tread carefully when we communicate with China and when we communicate about China. And this is an important issue for Norway, where it was mentioned that Norway probably isn't the most dependent on China compared to other countries. But a thing for us in AF that is very important to also keep an eye out for is how China is carrying out their efforts to establish itself as a country that a lot of developing countries around the world are dependent on. And the massive investments in, for example, Africa that China is currently undergoing and taking and putting into action is a sort of political dilemma for us, because of course we want developing countries to have the opportunities to create prosperous futures for their people, and right now the actions that China is taking towards these countries is crucial for that development. But how do we prevent that from creating a dependency that can later lead to China gaining way more political influence in the world and also economic influence? And we believe firmly that the only way we can actually combat that is by providing an alternative, by Norway actually stepping up to the plate and providing some of the things that China is currently providing, and filling the sort of economic vacuum that we have in the global economy, where the Western countries for way too long has been unwilling to actually participate and contribute to a lot of these developing countries. So I think sort of the human rights issues and the economic issues needs to go hand in hand if we are looking for a solution for a lot of the issues that we're seeing with China's way of making policy and treating both its own population but also the world population. In AF, we always say this thing about being partiets salt, which means being the Labour Party's salt. And this is not just something that we say, this is something that we carry out every day by pushing for more brave legislation and pushing for more brave policy making. And I would like to finish up by actually thanking everyone here for helping us in filling that role. It is something that we try to do our best, but that would be impossible if we didn't have organizations and activists on specific political issues that help us actually realize what we need to push for. Because we can have a lot of opinions about what's wrong, but if we don't get provided with some of the solutions that could be presented for the politicians, then our job would probably be impossible, being partiets salt. So thank you so much for that. And lastly, just again, wanted to thank the organizers of this event and the opportunity to say a few things. I don't think I succeeded in summarizing the whole day, but at least I provided some perspective. So thank you so much.